Chapter 1: The Return of the Void. For eons, the galaxy had thrived in relative peace, each species playing their part in the intricate web of cosmic life. The Galactic Council, an ancient body formed by the most powerful civilizations, acted as the governing authority, managing trade, exploration, and peacekeeping. But in the deep, forgotten corners of the universe, there were things far older than the Council, darker than any nightmare the galaxy had ever known. The Void was one such force. It had been millennia since the Void had last appeared, and its very existence had become the stuff of legend. It was said to be a sentient force, one that devoured stars and consumed the life within entire galaxies. Most believed it was just a myth, a cautionary tale told to keep civilizations humble. That is, until the stars began to vanish. The first reports were dismissed as anomalies, stars dimming and dying for no apparent reason. But soon, entire systems went dark, their inhabitants lost without a trace. The Galactic Council, slow to act and even slower to believe the threat was real, began receiving distress calls from distant sectors. As the phenomenon spread, panic gripped the galaxy. The Void had returned, and this time it would not be denied. Chapter 2: A Species on the Sidelines. Humanity was still considered a young race by galactic standards, only a few centuries into their faster-than-light exploration. They had been welcomed into the Galactic Council not for their technological advancements or military strength, but for their creativity and adaptability. Humans had a knack for solving problems in ways that more advanced species often overlooked. But as the Void continued to spread, no one thought to ask humanity for help. The larger, older empires saw them as a species with promise, but lacking the sheer power needed to face an existential threat like the Void. Even humans themselves didn't fully understand the magnitude of what was happening, as they were still on the outskirts of the galactic community. The Council convened an emergency meeting in the heart of its capital, a station the size of a small moon, to discuss how to stop the Void. Representatives from the most powerful species gathered: Krull warlords, Vortian strategists, the Zorth engineers, and more. The mood was somber, for none had any solution. "The Void consumes everything," said General Thrak, the Krull leader, his voice a low growl. "Our weapons are useless against it. It is neither fleet nor army. It is the end." The council members exchanged grim looks. The Vortian ambassador, a tall, regal being with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries, spoke next. "If we cannot fight it, we must flee. Evacuate our most important worlds. Save what we can before it reaches us." "That's your solution?" A voice rang out, causing heads to turn. Captain Sarah Tanaka, a human representative attending her first council meeting, stood up. She was young for such an important post, but she had proven her worth through diplomatic missions and crisis management. Still, her voice was one of the few human voices in a room filled with giants. "You're just going to run?" she continued, her eyes scanning the room. "That's your plan? Abandon everything and hope it doesn't chase you down later?" "What would you suggest, human?" General Thrak growled, though there was no malice in his voice, only the weariness of a warrior who had run out of options. Tanaka took a breath. "We fight." The room erupted in murmurs, laughter, and disbelief. The idea seemed preposterous. The Void was not a conventional enemy, and to even suggest that it could be fought seemed like madness. But Tanaka wasn't finished. "Humanity has faced extinction before. We've faced enemies far more powerful than us, and every time we found a way to survive. You may have bigger ships, stronger weapons, and centuries of experience, but you've already given up. That's the difference between us and you. Humans don't give up." The room fell silent. The council members stared at her, some with contempt, others with curiosity. Eventually, the Vortian ambassador spoke again. "What do you propose, Captain?" Tanaka straightened her back. "Let us try. Let humanity lead the charge. If we fail, you can evacuate and run. But give us a chance to fight." Chapter 3: The Plan. Despite the Council's skepticism, they had no better alternative. Humanity was granted a small, experimental fleet, a gesture of faith, if not outright belief. Their task was simple: buy time. While the other species began evacuation plans, the humans would try to slow the Void's advance. Humanity had always been known for their ingenuity under pressure, and now, with their very existence on the line, they worked tirelessly to come up with a plan. Earth's brightest minds, from engineers to scientists to military strategists, collaborated in ways they never had before. The void wasn't just a force of destruction, it was a living entity that fed on energy. Stars, planets, and even life itself. Everything that emitted energy was absorbed into its endless hunger. But what if that hunger could be used against it? Dr. Olivia Reyes, one of humanity's top physicists, developed the theory. The void devours energy, she explained to Captain Tanaka and the rest of the human leaders. But what if we give it more than it can handle? What if we overload it? Tanaka raised an eyebrow. Overload it how? We create a chain reaction, Dr. Rice said, her eyes alight with the excitement of possibility. We lure it to a system filled with stars, planets, and artificial energy sources, then detonate them all at once. If we hit it with enough energy in a short enough time, it might collapse under its own consumption. It's a long shot, one of the military officers muttered. But it's a shot, Tanaka said, and right now, that's all we've got. Chapter 4, The Bait. The humans had chosen a system near the galactic core, a cluster of stars rich with energy and resources. The plan was simple in theory but complex in execution. They would set traps throughout the system, massive reactors, fusion bombs, and destabilized stars, all rigged to explode at precisely the right moment. Humanity's experimental fleet would act as bait, luring the void into the trap. It was a suicide mission for most, but the volunteers were many. Every human who signed up for the mission knew what was at stake, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy. Captain Tanaka led the fleet personally. As the ships prepared to jump to the target system, she addressed her crew one last time. Some of you have families waiting for you on Earth. Some of you left everything behind to be here. But right now, we are all that stands between the galaxy and total annihilation. We're not the biggest, we're not the strongest, but we're human, and that means we don't back down. We don't quit. The fleet jumped into the system, knowing that they were likely heading to their deaths. Chapter 5, Into the Abyss. The void arrived sooner than expected, its presence signaled by the dimming of the stars in the distance. It wasn't just a single entity, it was an all-consuming force, a darkness that stretched across the heavens, swallowing everything in its path. The human fleet moved into position, launching drones and decoys to draw the void's attention. The plan had to be perfect. The timing had to be flawless. One misstep, and the entire operation would fail. As the void approached the heart of the system, the tension aboard the ships was palpable. The crew watched as stars began to dim, the light itself being consumed by the advancing darkness. "Steady," Tanaka ordered, her voice calm despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Wait for the signal." Seconds felt like hours as the void came closer. It was vast, larger than any fleet, any planet. It was a force of nature, indifferent to the lives it destroyed. "Now!" Tanaka shouted. The reactors, bombs, and stars all detonated in unison. The system lit up with a blinding light, brighter than 1,000 suns. The energy released was incomprehensible, a surge of power that rippled across the galaxy. For a moment, it seemed as though the void had been stopped. It recoiled, its form destabilizing as it struggled to consume the overwhelming energy. But then it pushed forward. The plan had failed. Chapter 6, The Human Spirit. Despair threatened to consume the fleet. The void was still advancing, and the trap hadn't worked. Captain Tanaka's heart sank, but she refused to give in. "Is there anything left we can do?" she asked Dr. Reyes, who was frantically scanning the data. "There's one more thing," Reyes said, her voice shaking. "The core detonator. It's a failsafe, but if we trigger it manually, it might just be enough to destroy the void. But what?" Tanaka demanded. "It's a one-way trip. Whoever triggers it won't make it out." Tanaka didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." Her crew protested, but Tanaka was resolute. "This is what we signed up for. If I don't do this, we all die anyway." She boarded a small ship, heading directly into the heart of the void. As she flew closer, she could feel the cold, oppressive presence of the entity pressing in on her, sapping the light and warmth from her surroundings. She reached the core detonator, a device built to unleash one final blast of energy. With a deep breath, she activated it. "Goodbye," she whispered, just before the explosion consumed her. Chapter 7, A New Dawn. The void collapsed. The final blast of energy was too much for it to absorb, and it imploded, leaving behind nothing but empty space. The stars that had dimmed began to shine again, their light piercing the darkness. Humanity had done the impossible. Against all odds, they had stopped the void. The survivors of the fleet returned home as heroes, and Captain Tanaka's name was etched into the annals of history. The galaxy, once divided, was united in gratitude for the one species that had refused to give up.